Oh, and then Mark, why don't you go ahead and start recording also. So. Hey everybody, this is Wayne. We have got amazing guests with us here today. And I believe that we have both Jeff and Dean, and I think that one of them is going to have a little bit of a shorter time frame. We're always, as always, privileged to have Mark helping organize. Not sure whether a read is on or not. We are now well into our fourth year. This is a second session that we've had with Greg and his discussion of the universal model. We were just having a real nice discussion about that before we started. We're excited to do this. They've come a long way since we had them on previously. They're now in volume 2 of their book, and we're excited. So let's start out with just letting Greg give us a little bit of a background. I kind of assume that your audience didn't necessarily hear your first presentation, Greg. I'm sure that's what you're doing anyway. But and let's go from there and tell us a little bit about yourself and the model, and just lead into your presentation.
Well, thank you very much for having us on here, Wayne. Appreciate it. And I hope there's no extraneous noise. If there is, let me know. And do you hear me okay?
Coming in loud and clear, like you're sitting right next to me.
Perfect. So I've been a curious person. I'm curious in one way, but I'm always seeking information, knowledge, truth. And I was going to be a science teacher, but my dad said, just the way the public schools are right now, and there were not very many charter, there weren't really any private schools at the time, and that I could teach high school very much. And he said, just wait. And so I never lost my enjoyment for science. And then I was talking with Dean Sessions' brother one time, and he mentioned to me about his brother who was working on this science book. I said, really, what about it? He said, well, you have to do that. And he showed me a little bit of the sample of the universal model, which was, about 18, 17 years in development at that point. And then I saw one of the chapters and it lit me on fire. I said, I've got to meet your brother. He says, well, I'll let you hang there for a minute. I have to check with him because he's really kind of private on who he talks to about this. So eventually I got to meet Dean, and ever since then, I just have had my whole worldview, literally the world, the way I see the world, changed in what it is and how it came to be and how it works. And, volume 1, we talked about the last time, it's really the Earth system and what the Earth is, how it works, how it came to be, and basic foundations of rocks and things like that. So you got the Earth system, and then volume 2, the living system, is what we're going to be talking about a little bit here. It's not just life, but historical life and things like that. So I've just been thrilled to be able to be involved in a little way here in introducing or learning about the universal model. And I think your audience is going to love it too, like I do. And at least I'm hoping that. So it's been, 12, 13 years, Dean, since we came working together?
I think so, Greg. Yeah, thanks for having me on here today. I'm really excited and hope you can hear me okay. I'm out here today, outdoors, and you can kind of see some of the stuff that we're going to be talking about and everything here, what's going on. And like Greg said, we met quite a number of years ago. The universal model is actually a project that's been going on for 30 years. And we have a number of researchers like Greg that have been involved with this for decades, actually. And they've been helping us in doing research. And so let me just show you what we actually have done here. We launched this book a couple of years ago. This is the universal model, which is volume 1, the Earth system. So in the Earth system, what we have in here is everything that you want to know concerning the Earth. How the Earth was made, how rocks are made, how volcanoes work, how where meteorites actually come from. A lot of the science that we're taught in schools and we listen to today is actually theoretical. So let's just go to real quick here, something in the very beginning of the book here. You can see this. Here's two what we call puzzles, 100 pieces of a puzzle. And I love to ask people, if we take this 100 pieces of a puzzle and you look at that, and then I close this up and I say, okay, put it back together like you just saw that. How many people do you think could do that? Well, I've asked thousands of people and I still have not come across someone with a, photo memory that could just look at that and do that. Most people don't have that ability. Some of the pieces are there correctly, but by and large, it just makes no sense at all. However, if you look at the image on the right, you can see there's actually some steps going up, and you can see how everything there actually makes sense, okay? Well, this is the modern science picture, and this is the way nature really is. So the same pieces of the puzzle. The difference is that the way nature really works, and this is what the universal model explains, is the pieces only go together one way. And once the pieces are together, what do? They make a picture that is both comprehensible and understandable. Well, that's what the universal model is. For the first time, you're going to understand all the questions you've ever had in nature and a lot more. So let's go and show you right now why that modern science picture is so convoluted, basically, is where it's at. Let's see here. What I want to show you is what we call the big picture modern science.
I can show that on the screen if you want.
Okay, yeah, I can show that on the screen because I got it right here in the book too. But if you pop that up on the screen right there, you can see that. Do the present button there on the right. See the present button over there on the right, Greg? There you go, okay. So yeah, so that's the modern science puzzle picture there you can see. Now at the top you see human beings. Well, from these two theories in modern science, this is really the big picture. If you take a class from all the sciences, archaeology, biology, chemistry, physics, astronomy, paleontology, all of them, they teach you that human beings came from an ape-like creature, which comes from bacteria, which comes from chemicals, which comes from a Big Bang, which comes from nothing. Now, the universal model is really unique because in here, you want to switch back to this page I'm looking at on the screen here, and switch back to this. We actually have, for example, when we talk about this diagram, there's a figure description underneath it. So it might look like it's a big book, a lot of pages. Not everybody wants to read that many pages. You can just look at the images and look at the description below them. It gives you a little synopsis. And then right after that, we have these pages. Every page in here has blue quotes. There's over 2,000 of them in each of these volumes. What the blue quotes are quotes from the scientists themselves. So this is their words, and we have a reference there, so you can go right to where they are, where that came from. And some people say, well, wait a minute, scientists don't really believe something came from nothing. Yes, they do. Stephen Hawking, for example, we have his quotes, and we have scientists that wrote an entire book saying everything from nothing. So these scientists are very famous, they're very well known, and they believe everything came from nothing. 99% plus of the general public understands you don't get something from nothing. So this is the problem. This is the crisis in modern science. And there's been scientists that have talked about the crisis in modern science and how for there to be a revolution in science, you have to have a crisis. And well, we definitely have a crisis. So this is called the Dark Age of Science, this particular chapter. These are the intro chapters that really have to set the stage. Oh, this is an interesting one. If you look right here, this is a chart from this book right here. Let's see, it looks actually right here. You can see this book. And this is the 100 scientists who shaped the world. We went through all 100 of those scientists and took out what they actually did. And when we did that, we put it in a chart here. And if you can see from this chart, what it actually shows is 4 categories. There's new observations, new technologies, new theories, and new laws, okay? Well, you can see that the observations and the technologies have been going on. This is all the way back to 500 BC, all the way up till now. The new theories, well, there's still some here that have been here for the last 150 years, but all the ones before that, they're not there. they're gone. What happened is they got moved over into the new laws section. These are natural laws. So down here we have natural laws, but we notice this last 100-year period, what's going on? There is a dark age, okay? And it's really easy to ask and to find out, because all we have to do is say, okay, in the last 100 years, how many new natural laws have you learned about when you went to school? Or your parents or grandparents? Well, it turns out the answer is real simple. It's 0. And why is it 0? Well, if we go back to Newton, the law of gravity, for example, that's over 300 years ago. So the natural law is a statement of truth. This is very important. When you drop a rock, it falls to 9.8 meters per second squared every single time. In the same location, it drops the same speed. And so you know the height, you can actually calculate the exact time it's going to hit. And this is very important in understanding. Without these laws, we wouldn't be going to the moon. We wouldn't have our space age or anything. But these laws came from hundreds of years ago. Today, do we have more scientists than 100 years ago? Yes, we do, a lot more. Today, do we have more money going towards science than 100 years ago? Yes, way more money. And last but not least, do we have more technology than 100 years ago? Way more technology today. So if we have more technology, more money, and more scientists, why don't we have more new natural laws discovered? The reason is very simple. This is by the National Science Association, NSF, okay, they call it. The endpoints of science are theories. This is their quote. So that's in the end of volume 1 here. They're not even looking for natural laws. The endpoints of science are theories. A theory and a law is not the same thing. And modern scientists try to mingle these and make them the same, but they're not. A natural law is a mathematical equation, or it's a statement of truth. Okay, when you drop that rock, it's going to fall the same speed every single time. It does not change. This is the purpose of real scientists, is to find natural law that demonstrate how nature works. And this is an explanation that tells us why things are the way they are and how they work. So that's a little.
So kind of to recap on volume 1, you kind of gave the intro, but just so we can get into volume 2, I just wanted to go over what the theoretical scientists say is inside of the Earth and what the Earth really is like. So I got a couple of slides that I can go to, what we've been taught since childhood. So I show that?
Sure, that'd be great. Let's talk about it real simple, because this is the main point of volume 1 that we're just talking about right here, is the Earth. We were all taught in school came from what's in the center of the Earth. We're all taught it's magma, right? Okay. So let's ask the first question, well, why would it be hot? Okay, what's the mechanism for causing heat inside the center of the Earth? Well, it's a real simple answer. All you have to do is say, who's ever been there? Who's ever actually observed the center of the Earth being hot? And what's the mechanism? The answer is nobody has. And there is no mechanism for the center of the Earth to be hot. Now, some scientists have tried to say, well, it's radioactive stuff. You know, it's melted rock down there. It's molten core. Well, that doesn't work, because if you go to uranium, okay, the only large amount of any mineral that's radioactive, and it's very, very small. It's much more rare than gold is. And you can hold it in your hand. I have uranium ore. I show a picture in the book here. I'm holding it in my hand. We go to a uranium mine. We have a metal detector there. I mean a uranium, detector, and you can hear it clicking and going off. And this is radioactive ore, but it's not hot in my hand. Natural radioactive minerals are not hot to the touch. So there is no mechanism in nature to be heating inside the center of the Earth. It just doesn't happen. So we have to say, well, wait a minute, Dean. We know that lava is real. That's right, we do. If you go to Hawaii, you can see it coming right out of the volcano, right? That's observable. It's on the surface of the Earth only. Where does lava come from? Well, I like to show people. Let's see if I can do it right now. I'm going to do a little experiment for you. I'm going to show you my hands. They're pretty darn clean there. Okay, well, I'm going to rub them together. And I'm rubbing them. You got the screen switched over so you can see my hands. Okay, that's about 100 pounds of pressure, and the heat is 100 degrees at least. Yeah, am I on the big screen? Mr. Greg? Okay, if you look real close there, you can see all of these little black things here. That's called skid lava. You can see it over here too, okay? That was only 100 pounds of pressure in just a couple seconds. Well, if I have 1,000,000 pounds of pressure and I move my fingers 1 centimeter, what that causes is tens of thousands of degrees. This has actually been measured in fault lines on the surface of the earth. Well, you only need 2,400 degrees to melt rock. So let's talk about what melted rock really is. This is a central theme of volume 1 all the way through. This is a piece of limestone. You can see that here, okay? And if you look at the top, you say, well, what is that up there? Okay? Let's see if we switch this light over here. See a little better. So this, there we go. This is a piece of sandstone. What I did is I took an acetylene torch and I melted the top of it. And this is smooth. And what is this now? This is quartz, made out of quartz, sandstone quartz. Okay. Well, this at the top, by the way, this is a magnetite, an iron ore here at the very top of the, and this is the kind of a piece of wonderstone. It's not your normal sandstone. But this at the very top is glass. That's why it's shiny. Okay. I can break this off if I want to just use my fingers hard enough, I can break it off. Glass is very brittle. Quartz, which is something like this is a quartz crystal. Okay, we all seen stuff like that. It's very hard. But when you take quartz and melt it, it turns into what I'm wearing right here, glasses. And that's what this is glass. Glass is completely different than quartz in that they're both made out of SiO2, but they have totally different properties. Quartz is 1,000 times more conductive than glass is. Glass is very brittle, okay? And you have to ask, is the whole surface of the earth, is it made out of glass? No, it is not. It's made out of quartz. The primary constituent of the continents that we're standing on right now is quartz. Very important. It's so important, we actually show how to make quartz in the book, okay? Let me give you an example here of that. We did an experiment. This took 3 years to duplicate. Technologists, by the way, have found out a lot of these things we show you here in the book, but the scientists have ignored it because it hasn't fit their theories. And this is really critical. So here's a picture of when we...
I'm going to put that on the big screen, Dean. I've got that right here.
That's great. So what we're going to show you here down on the bottom left-hand side in the big screen, you can see before growing, there's a crystal quartz there, and there's wire around that, okay? Well, if you look at the bigger picture just to the right of it, it's the same stone. Notice the wire is now inside the rock. And this is because after growing it, we doubled the size of the rock in 1 day. Let that sink in for a minute. Not millions of years, 1 day. That's right. It does not take long time to grow rocks. And we're going to talk a little later on today in our presentation. And now that we know how to grow rocks, well, there's a very important rock, some of the most important rock on the entire surface of the earth. The most abundant fossil is what? We know what the most abundant fossil on the entire surface of the earth is, and volume-wise, and that you can hold in your hand, it's going to be petrified wood. Petrified wood is an extremely important fossil because once you understand how to make petrified wood, then you kind of learn to understand how all fossils are made. And that's what we demonstrate in volume 2. We actually put a piece of wood in this autoclave. You can see the top picture up there at the top. The hand is holding this pipe, and in that high pressure reactor, we have to have about 14,000 PSI. It's full of water. That's right, water with pressure. And over on the left there is the oven setup. You need about 400 degrees Celsius. So once you have the right recipe, it's just like growing cookies. You can grow rocks. And when you put a piece of petrified wood in there, you're able to turn it a piece of regular wood in there, we can turn it into petrified wood in 2 days. We'll show you another picture of that a little later on. So this is really important because scientists don't do this. Now the technologists figured out 50 years ago how to make quartz, okay? But no scientist has ever taken and applied it to nature. So what we have here is that why did technologists figure this out? This is in World War II. We were worried about the Japanese were going to cut off our supply from South America. Brazil had the best quartz crystals that were really clear, and we used in our radios for the war. And if you didn't have radios, you couldn't communicate. It was very important to have these crystal radios and to have the quartz crystals. So our scientists over here did like a mini Manhattan project, and they actually found out how to make quartz. So what's happening inside this autoclave is critical. We need to understand this because the entire surface of the Earth is not melted rock. Remember, the Earth was a whole molten core of melted rock, which all the geologists believe today. It'd all be melted. Not only that, if you go to the moon, okay, and look on its surface, if those impacts have really happened the way scientists say, a high-speed impact is the same as an atomic explosion. It's way harder than the melt temperature of 2,400 degrees Fahrenheit, about 1,700 degrees Celsius, to melt the rock. It's way higher than that. All the surface of the moon would be glass, and it's not. So this is a whole another thing we talk about in the book is impacts and meteors.
Sorry to interrupt you. I'm not trying not to interrupt, but the point of this change of thought is that there's not really magma inside of the Earth. And if you want me to show the screen of what really the Earth, the model looks like, the surface of the Earth is 70% covered by water, right?
Okay, we're going to come right to that, yeah. But before we do that, let's just explain one thing. Inside that little autoclave we had, all we need to understand is what's going on in there is the same thing all of us have experienced. If I take a glass of water and put salt in it, right? Let's say I have some little salt here and I put it in the water. What does it do? It dissolves. We all know that. Well, it turns out that I can pick up any rock off the ground, natural rock, and I put it in my autoclave, and guess what it's going to do? At the right pressure and temperature in water, it dissolves. Now, once it's dissolved in there, and this is important in our autoclave, we have a little hotter, about 75 more degrees on the bottom of the oven versus the top. So what does heat do? It rises. This is called convection. It goes up and then cools and comes back down. This convection process, and by the way, this is why wood is so easily petrified, is because wood has a lot of air in it, and that's part of the recipe, by the way. And there has to be this convection process going on. This is why they're found on the surface of the Earth. That's where the wood was when it formed. And we're going to be getting into that. There was an event that caused all these fossils to be formed. This is why you don't go down in the Grand Canyon and we don't find any petrified wood. It doesn't exist. You don't find dinosaur bones. You don't find salt in the layers of the Grand Canyon. This is the deepest, most studied canyon in the entire world. Okay, and there's not fossils in every single layer. There's very few fossils, and they're marine fossils that are found there. Most of them are found right on the surface. So there's no oil, there's no coal seams. They think the water went in and out 7 times to form that, and that's not what took place. Okay, the Grand Canyon was not made by erosion, by the way. We were talking before we get to the Grand Canyon. Let's go back to our magma. So the Earth is not a melted ball of magma because it'll all be glass on the surface. It's not. It's quartz. How is quartz made? Quartz is made out of water. So we talked about salt in the water. What happens to salt when the water evaporates? Does it disappear? Greg, you're supposed to be answering my questions.
Oh, okay. No.
You gotta remember, you're just like the listeners, right? Okay, but you know a little more than they do. So no, the salt does not disappear.
Okay, so I'm supposed to answer like a good student. Okay.
Yeah, yes. What does the salt do out of the water? When it comes crystallized out of the water, what's that called?
Crystallization.
Yeah, but it has a specific name. Starts with a P. Precipitation. precipitates, okay? So this is a term that becomes much more important in geology because rocks are actually precipitating out of water. They're crystallizing, like Greg said, out of water, okay? This is very critical. So let me show you. Here's a larger one, okay? You can see this one here. It's actually hanging. You look real close, you can see the wires in there, okay? This starts with a seed. You can see right down the middle, going right down the middle there was a thin seed that was hanging on the wire, okay? And once this seed is put in, this was made in a much larger reactor, okay? About this big around and several stories high. And when you put it in very large reactors like this, they do it commercially to make pure quartz. You're able to do the same thing we can do, and you can grow these very quickly if you understand the process. I have another one here. You can see the seed going down the middle of that there, and this has got some color in it. Okay, but this is quartz. So this is man-made quartz that they used a natural crystal in the middle, a seed, and it grew off that. So this is real important to understand that the rocks are coming out of water. Now,
and of course, this is my little quartz that I got from a friend in Arkansas. So this is naturally made quartz. It has kind of a rough end here where it bumped up against something, and perfect point at the top, and just some imperfections. You look at the imperfections on this side, but just a nice geometric attempt anyway, until it got interrupted.
Okay, can you show this one up on the screen, big screen there? So let's look at this one here too, okay? So this one is, like Greg was talking about, a natural crystal, okay? But let's look right here. Let's look right here. Tell me if you can see it, Greg, there.
Yeah.
Moving it back. What is that moving in there? Do you see that? What is that? That, my friends, is a water bubble. This is called an anhydro. This is a Herkimer diamond. Okay, that's the name of it. It comes from New York. There's a special place over there that they have them there, so you can see it there a little better again, going back and forth. Well, let's show you a much better one over here. Okay, this one, this is a Brazilian quartz crystal from Brazil. But let's look up here.
Yeah, you can see that bouncing around, that nice air bubble.
1 second here. Let's do a little better one here. I'm going to chip this down a little farther. There we go. Look at that. This is an extremely large cavity of water, and you can see the bubble moving all the way across. Most geologists have never, ever seen anything like this. They were never taught in school that there's water in every single rock. I'm going to explain that to you in just a second, how every natural rock has water in it, and I can prove it in 1 hour. But I want to show you another one. So this one I'm going to put a light on here.
You know, the thing too, Dean, is when I took my college level geology course up in Alaska, it gave me the chemical formulas of various different rocks, but it never included water in the formula, in the formulation of it. It just gave the silicon dioxide, etc.
Yeah, they know there's water in some rocks, but they don't realize there's water in all rocks. Look at this one here. You can see a line going right across here. This cavity, there's more water and air in this rock than there is quartz. This is a quartz geode. Can you see that going across there? Yeah. This is a quartz geode. It's polished on the outside. Look at that water on the inside as I'm moving it back and forth. You can see it inside. There's a big old bubble of it in there. I got another one here. See if I can do the same thing on this one.
Mark, is that showing up on the big screen at all, Mark?
Everybody see that? This is an extremely large bubble. Okay, it's on the big screen. Everybody can see that, okay? Very important. These are polished geodes. So what's it look like on the inside of a geode? I got one right here. Where did you go? Right here. So here's one. You know, most of us have seen a geode. I mean, it's pretty simple, okay? But what we don't realize is that down inside here was all water. You see the little crystal stuff down there? That was all water. It grew out of water, okay? Scientists don't teach this. They don't explain it. Here's another geode. one of my favorite ones. I have to make it so it's not too bright. Okay. This one you can see real easy. There you go. So when I go to move it, and this one you don't even need a light below. You can just click that, you can see it. So this is another geode. You're looking on the outside, it was polished, so you can see on the inside all that water in there. Tremendous amount of water in there. So how in the heck did water get inside these geodes? Well, my friends, that is very important. We can actually, like I just said, we can actually go out into nature, pick up any rock off the ground, and let's discuss right now how we can know there's water inside rocks. If I take a rock like this and I put it on my scale, this is a piece of quartzite, which we're going to show something with later. It's very important. It's made out of all quartz, okay? But it's not a quartz crystal. It's crystalline, okay? It's an all bunch. The crystals are all in a bunch of different directions. But if I take any rock, even one like this, okay? This is another pretty polished quartz crystal rock here from Brazil too. If we take this one and put it on a scale, and let's say it weighs 100.00 grams. All we have to do is take this rock. What happens to water when it gets to 212 degrees Fahrenheit, 100 degrees Celsius?
Right. Boiling.
It boils. It's more than evaporating here, okay? 1 gallon of water turns into 1,700 gallons of steam. This creates a tremendous pressure. So when you do it slowly, and you have to be careful slowly, if you have any campers on your show here, been watching, if you've had a fire out or going around, while you're camping and put rocks next close to the fire and they get too hot, they will pop. You will almost for sure have some rocks that have so much water in them. All these anhydros that we just talked about that have the water bubbles in them, they explode. They just explode when you put them in an oven because that water expands and pops them and blows them up. But all rocks have water in them. And what happens is, when they were naturally made, that water is microscopically in the crystalline structure. So when you heat it past 100 degrees Celsius for a couple hours, that's all you need, about 2 hours max. 100-gram rock, when you take it out, cool it down, put it back on the scale, will never weigh 100 grams again. We're talking 99 point something, even 98 point something. Obsidian is an interesting rock. I don't have any pieces right in front of me, but it has more than 3% water in it. Opal has more than 30% water in it. And these explode. Soon you take a piece of obsidian, and people think that came from a melt. What a joke. They've never taken a piece of obsidian. You put a torch that you melt steel and stuff with on the rock, that melts it, okay? This is how I melted this piece of rock right here, okay? You put a torch on a piece of obsidian, you know what it does? You have to have protective gear and everything all over you because it starts popping. And shards will just fly up into your face if you're not protected, okay? So this is really important to understand that what modern science has told us about magma, what Greg brought up here at the very beginning and is in volume 1, is incorrect. As a matter of fact, I'm going to prove to you right now how off base modern geology has been, okay? So if we're looking at this is a piece of basalt. This is a black rock. Matter of fact, it's all over the earth. And basalt is said in every textbook to be the most abundant volcanic rock in the world. Most abundant volcanic. So that means it came out of a volcano. That means it was, lava was melted, right? We know lava is real. The problem is, let's ask the question, what geologist has ever observed with their eyes that this rock, piece of basalt, came from a volcano, from a lava flow? Which one?
There's no modern basalt.
That's right. Go back in history, find a geologist that'll show you, here's some lava in Hawaii or over in Italy where they have lava come out all the time and cools down, and you find one of them that says, oh, it's basalt now. No one will ever observe that. That's because this piece of basalt is made out of quartz. And quartz, we've already shown you all these pieces of quartz back here, only grows out of water. Water, not a melt. When you take this rock, which is basalt, it's supposed to have come from a volcano, and take an acetylene torch and put on it, guess what you get? You get that. That, my friends, is glass. You can see how it dripped down here on the end. That is glass. And I could break this out with my finger. I had to glue it on several times because glass is so brittle. This rock, I could take it with a hammer, hit it, and they're going to do nothing to it. They use this for cobblestones in Europe to drive on still to this day. They've been there for thousands of years. Basalt is a very, very important mineral that demonstrates that modern geology doesn't have a clue about rocks. That's right. The three kind of rocks.
We got to go to volume 2 here pretty quickly, but I wanted to show what the scientists have not been able to justify the magma theory of the planet with the X-ray seismography. How do you say that? Seismography.
Seismography is the sound waves that goes through the earth. We do know inside the earth there's liquid. Okay, we do know that because the sound waves are through. But it's not molten liquid like this. What liquid is it?
I want to show you that on the screen right now. What the model is more looking like. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, yeah, okay. So that is what the Earth really looks like on the inside. We know there's a core. We know how big it is because the sound waves that go through the Earth that come from earthquakes, they've mapped out the inside of the Earth. And they know it's a liquid down there, but the liquid, my friends, is water. So let's just ask real quick. Can you pop that comet one on there, Greg? The comet, it's the Neowise comet that's been in the news and everything around. I love to bring all the latest things that's been in the news because everything that comes up in the news, anything in nature is going to support the universal model. This has been going on for 30 years, 3 decades. The Neowise comet, I try to understand that this is a rock out in space, a rock. The scientists could not see this rock because it's too small and it's too far away. Unless what? What are you looking at there? You're not seeing a rock. You're seeing a tail. What is that tail made of, Greg?
Magic dust.
No, it's not magic, my friends. You're looking at a geode. We just showed you these rocks here, right, that have all the water inside them. That's what you're looking at is a geode. And what's happening is this rock is getting close to the sun. As it gets close to the sun, it gets heated up. The water inside that rock is coming out. Because once you heat rock, when it's out in space, you don't need 100 degrees Celsius, by the way. You only have to increase it a couple degrees. Because when there's no pressure, the water vaporizes much quicker. So this water is bursting out of what we call hydrofountains out of the rock. It's coming out of the rock and it comes into space, it cools, it crystallizes, and it's the sunlight that's reflecting off of that tail of water crystals that you're seeing. Imagine that. Every time you see a comet, you're seeing a demonstration that rock came out of water. That's right. All rocks in nature grew out of water. That is a crystal showing it grew out of water. So can you turn to a Saturn? Can you show real quick there some of the pictures of Saturn we have? Saturn has these rings going around it. We all know about that, right? Well, what are those rings made out of? There's some lighter and darker ones. All the white area is pure water crystals. Some of the other brownish and darker areas have a little bit of sediment that have come from the moons that are going around the Saturn and Jupiter. Do we have a picture of Enceladus in there? If you could find that, Greg. Because Enceladus is a moon that if you don't have one, people can go on to Wikipedia and just look on the pictures of Wikipedia. You'll find Enceladus, E-N-C-A-F, Enceladus, C-A-N, I don't know how to spell it. But Enceladus is a moon of Saturn, pretty sure, or is it Jupiter? Anyway, they both have moons, and what's coming out of Enceladus, the Cassini spacecraft was flying right by it. And this is more than 15 years ago, and it took a picture of a hydrofountain. Oh, I can show you one here real quick. So what we're talking about is we're talking about a fountain that shot out of right here. It shot out of Enceladus that was 3 times the length of the moon. Okay, so this is the moon right here. And you can see this is a false negative picture that's showing this in really great detail. We have other ones showing the water coming out like this. And the reason it happened, you see this here, this is from the scientists, okay? So there's no debate here, okay? This is from the scientists. Matter of fact, there's 2,000 quotes in here, and every quote has the entry from Nature Journal. Most of them are from journals or the scientists' own books or their websites. And this is the scientists' observational facts. This right here, the reason this is red and orange is because they're hot. You can see the temperature here has increased over the other areas. And this is a fault line right in here on the moon, which got the movement, the friction that took place. We talked about this, my hand's getting hot here on Earth. Well, the same thing happens in all these moons. Jupiter has a tremendous amount of gravity, and it's pulling just like the earthquakes that are happening on the Earth. The reason that earthquakes happen, which modern geology cannot explain, is because the moon and the sun. The moon's about 2/3 of the poling part. And this is why the earthquakes happen specifically at certain times of the year more than other times. And they happen in cycles because this is the moon traveling around the Earth in cycles. The same thing with Enceladus. When that moon got close to Jupiter, and they travel in ellipses, by the way, not perfect circles. They get closer and far away. And as they get closer, and there's other moons around that they're also tugging on it, it's kind of like a football. It goes from a circle to a football, and it's pulling it back and forth. And that's what caused the water to shoot out of these moons. You don't hear about this even in astronomy classes. My son was at college. I remember sitting in class and hearing the teacher talk, and they just totally leave all this out. Why would they do that? These are so important. Why would they leave these things out of, people coming in and learning basic geology of the celestial spheres? Because it doesn't fit their model. All these planets are supposed to come from magma, and they didn't.
Well, Dean, I want to ask a question here because, going from volume 1 into volume 2, you showed some nice thing, the fossils. One of the most interesting fossils that I've ever seen or heard of is agatized dinosaur bones, where the dinosaur bones are actually quartz. And then also a few years ago, there was the fleshy T-Rex where they found the blood cell, the flesh tissue and things like that. So you've got a wide range of dinosaur, non-fossilized and, fleshy. And I'm just going to show a picture also. You will show that right there that you've got, and then I'm going to put on the screen.
This is actually a dinosaur egg. This is the shell here on the outside of it right there. And so this went around, this egg was about this big, okay? It was about that big. This is a cone-shaped portion of the egg. And as you can see, what's inside the egg, you can see here, it's quartz crystals. So all the yolk and everything inside became a rock. And this is the egg shell on the outside. So they found round fossilized eggs like this that are turned into quartz rocks. And remember, quartz rocks are only made one way, out of water, under pressure and temperature.
So I'm going to show this big
dinosaur
bone one. And that's just a beautiful example of something that was living turned into a rock in a hypertherm, or the high pressure water situation that was on the surface of the planet, surface of the Earth. But then in other areas, it wasn't hot and wasn't silica rich fluid. And so you had some dinosaur flesh and bones preserved. And it's just,
you don't have the quartz inside, exactly. So it just depends. The picture on the left actually is not it may be a dinosaur bone, but we don't know what kind of bone that is. But that's in a septarian nodule. Okay, that's a different kind. Now this is interesting too, because we want to talk about microbes in here. I love this group that we're talking to, Greg, because they're eco-friendly, right? They understand a lot how important microbes are to the body. Do you know that scientists until 2006 only thought there was one microbe inside the body? That's
wow.
Right. In the stomach, it was A. pylori. They thought that would cause you to have ulcers. And it turns out that without that particular microbe, you're not going to survive. You have to make the hydrochloric acid that's in your stomach. If we have time, we'll talk about that a lot later. In volume 2, we actually get into the human model, and we have a medical science chapter in there that is really important. We have made several new medical discoveries in there that help us understand our body and how it works a lot better. It's concerning the salt in our body. The salt in our body doesn't come from what we eat, okay? And also it's actually made in the body. And this is all demonstrated in there and how that's all done. And also the energy in the body. Where does the electricity in our body actually come from? That's all discussed in there. But this is all comes back to microbes. Microbes are a very important part of all of the earth and all of living things that we know. Matter of fact, without microbes,
how does the microbes affect the picture of the dinosaur bones?
Okay, so I don't know if you have any other pictures of any other fossilized wood in there or the dinosaur bones. The colors you're looking at there came from microbes. That's right. The minerals that are inside, like petrified wood, inside the geode that was inside that piece of a dinosaur bone in there, the regions, they have colors. I didn't bring any out here today. Red and purple and all different colors.
Those of the petrified forest here with all different colors.
This is from Arizona, my home state, and I love Arizona. That's where I raised my family and stuff. And here's petrified forest. So we went out there and you're taking pictures. Look at the rainbow of colors. Okay, all of these colors come from microbes. This is really critical. And you only find this petrified wood on the surface again. It's not down deep and low in the layers. So let's show how petrified wood is actually made, Greg. If you could find that screen on the petrified wood there, we have a full-size shot there that shows our experiment that we did. This was inside the autoclave. And instead of just putting quartz crystals at the top to be the seeds, what we put in there was little pieces of wood. So I had in my backyard a pine tree and an apple tree that I put pieces in there. And it took us 3 years and 77 runs. So it was a lot of experimenting to get the pressures just right because we burn up the wood really easily. And we finally got it just right to where in 2 days, we could take a piece of tree and turn it into petrified wood. So if you look up here, you can see those pieces going across there at the top, okay? It says run 59 there. We actually had 77 runs. That's the pieces of wood that was now turned into petrified wood. You can take a lighter to that and it will not burn. Okay, it's now quartz-based rock. So this is very, very important because once you understand the process of all this, how it all occurred, well, then we have to start to say, wait a minute, let's scratch your head a little bit here. This is really something that's important. It affects everything that's living here in the living system of it.
Now wait, Dean, how many million years did that take you to do in your lab there?
Yeah, that was 2 days.
Okay, all right.
So we have to ask ourselves, okay, we don't have this long, this geological time frame thing is all bogus. By the way, if we open this this volume 2 up and you go to the very first chapter in here, it's called the age model. And this is the only place in the world you will find, Universal Model has new information that you won't find anywhere else in the world.
I got it right there on the screen for you, Dean.
Okay, yeah, there's the age model. But what the age model does is it literally goes through and demonstrates. We go back to the 1960s and 1970s journal articles where they first started using radiometric dating. And we show how before that time, they thought the Earth was, 600,000 years, 1 billion years, 2 billion years old. And then all of a sudden they come up with this now, it's 13 billion years old. All by radiometric dating. Well, radiometric dating is a complete farce. And the way this was originally put together and how they did it and what they did, we go to the original articles. Can you show some of those slides I got in there within the age model? Because we go back to the articles and show the very original stuff so there's the history table. You can see right there the history table. And if you go back and look at you tried to use orbital physics and ocean chemistry, erosion and sedimentation, the temperature, once again, they thought it was the Earth came from magma, now it's cooled down. All that's bogus. All those that had to be rejected. And the only one that they have now to use is radioactivity. Well, it turns out radioactivity was never proven. And we go to these original articles. Can you show one of those other slides that are showing, let's not do the Arizona hydro crater yet. That's not an impact crater, by the way. It's a hydro crater. Very, very important. This is the most studied crater in the entire solar system. So this is the age of the Earth. There you go. Dalrymple. This is a good one. Stop right there. Okay, make that full page. So this is Hawaiian basalt age. So they thought, the researchers thought, okay, this is their theory, right? And we give it to them that, hey, you start with an idea and a theory, but it should not be taught and propagated to every student and every school in the entire world when it's not proven.
So let me just clarify here. The sample is, what is it, potassium argon samples?
Yes, these are potassium argon samples.
So those are Ka1215. That's the name of the sample. And the age in years said 70,000 years old, according to that test run. The next one down, Ka1218, measured 0 years in age. The next one is 430,000. The next one is 530,000. And then there are even some that showed a negative age on some other testing. So it's all over the map as far, and this is supposed to be a precise science. We're supposed to know that this is real.
So this is the same deposit. They took one rock and a couple of rocks from the same deposit, okay, the same layer. They should all be the same age. We have another one that shows in here where they go down to multiple layers and they take these different layers, and there should be a progression because the stuff on the bottom should be the oldest. We all know that. And when the lava comes out next, it's newer and then newer and newer and newer until you got the ones today. Well, this one is showing you from the same piece all those years. What did they do? They just took it and averaged it and said, yeah, it's 250,000 years old.
Right.
Well, that's a bunch of bogus. And these were the articles. You can see the American Journal of Science down there, 1964, volume 262, and the page number where you can get this quote out.
But what the scientists, they're kind of under pressure to publish or perish, right? We've all heard that.
Well, no, this isn't about that. This particular person who was doing this was trying to prove creationism wrong.
Right,
Okay,
right.
yeah.
As far as scientific papers, he did a bunch of papers first. And if you go against what is understood, are you going to get published? No. So that's kind of a little bit of the dynamic, I think, right there.
That's true. That's absolutely right. That's right.
Yeah. Look at this one, though, and talk about that one a little bit.
Okay, so here's the piece of the basalt. Once again, this is out of Science, you can see there. And this is a Dalrymple again, 1968, okay? And this is the depth. So this is KR, potassium argon dating method, okay? This is the volcano there that they went down to different depths and took out the rocks. And look at the ages. They're all over the board. You got negative numbers and 42 million numbers. There's absolutely no correlation. There never has been proven one time that radiometric dating has any validity at all to it. Nobody's ever explained this. Nobody's gone back to these original people. You had the scientists trying to prove creationism wrong. The Earth can't be 7,000 years old, the way world history says. And then man's been on the Earth for 6,000 years. That's 13,000 years. They said there's no way that could be correct. And we know it's all millions, billions of years old. Well, that's bogus. They've never had ever any dating method showing that. Dendrochronology, which we actually talk about here in volume 2, actually does support the 13,000 year age of the Earth. Dendrochronology is tree ring dating. Now they take tree rings and they actually are able to take all these rings. Every ring is a year. There you go. And they show through dendrochronology, this is the experts in the field are able to show we can go back to literally 10, 11,000 years, showing trees were created, and from that point all the way now. Now, what's important in all this, we haven't kind of left out, besides the original creation of the Earth, we've left out the biggest event in the world's history. This happened 4,365 years ago. And not only do we know the year, but it was 2345 BC. This is how you know the number. We also know the month, by the way. But the 2345 BC, when you add, this is 2020 onto that, that's where you get your 4,365 years, okay? So 2020, that's our year, 2345 BC. By the way, this is demonstrated with dendrochronology on that year. It was a very wet year. And guess what? We had water cover the entire surface of the Earth. Now, how could this be possible? Well, first off, let's tell you what the water did. The water was 5 miles high. And the way we know that, it covered all the mountains and it just so happens this is a piece of petrified wood, okay? And this is what you have to have is 5 miles of water creates 14,000 PSI, the same pressure we had in our autoclave. And that autoclave with the temperature, yes, here's the fossilization process. And these are the very first parts of the flood. These are the fountains that popped up there out of, we haven't really talked about the mechanism for what caused the flood. So there was a universal flood, and we have to understand that this is an event that hasn't taken place since that time. And there's no process on the earth that's going to cause the event. There's nothing big enough. The water came out of the inside of the earth there. You can see on the right-hand side, the flood begins. These are fountains blowing up, okay? If you can go down and show some more of the fossilization process, all fossils are demonstrating the flood really happened, okay? Because the water being that high, first off, the water came out of the earth. It's inside the earth already. It's there right now. We have evidence after evidence in volume 1 here showing all the water inside the earth. Inside volcanoes, the whole inside of the volcano is not magma chamber. They know there's liquid in there. It's water. And we show those. We show the journal articles of the researchers finding this and seeing it. There's water everywhere inside the earth. And what we call seismology, which measures with seismic waves all the liquid inside the earth. They just not want to acknowledge that it's water because that throws modern geology under the bus and destroys it. So this flood, of course, demonstrates modern science is completely off base. Because this only happened 4,000 years ago, it changes all the dynamics of how the rocks were actually made on the surface of the earth. Number 3, you see the burial. Number 4, the fossil record. Oh, can you go back there real quick? The fossil, just hit the back button on your screen there. It'll go back and forth in screen mode. And you see the fossilization, see there? So on the bottom of the ocean with that 30,000 feet, now you got the pressure you need, and the temperature is happening because of the friction in the plates. So now you got the temperature. And a piece of wood today, what happens to a piece of wood? Let's ask all your viewers, okay? We're going to answer questions, by the way, after the hour's over here. So we're getting really close for questions. So we're going to ask questions in a few minutes here. If you have any, go ahead and text them in. So what happens to a piece of wood today in a forest when it falls on the ground or it gets buried? Does it turn into a rock? There's no fossilization taking place of petrified wood anywhere in the world today because in a forest, when it gets buried on the ground, what's in all soil? Microbes. We said microbes are really important, right? Well, the microbes that are in the soil, they end up decomposing the wood. We all know this. Go into any forest, you're going to see decomposing wood. You're not going to see wood turning into a rock. It only happens, we had to create a new term for that. I didn't explain that. When you make a rock, it's in a hypertherm. Okay? If you look at number 4 there, the fossilized thing on the screen, it says hyperthermal conditions. A hypertherm is high is from water, pres from pressure, and therm is from thermal. There's no word in physics today that describes water under pressure and temperature in one word. No word exists. They've ignored this. The geologists have not wanted to talk about water under pressure and temperature. Now we know hydrothermal, that's heated water, but everybody's left out the pressure. Without that pressure, you cannot grow the quartz crystals and make the petrified wood. So we've actually made petrified wood. We demonstrated this in the universal model, and we demonstrate all over the earth. You have fossils that are quartz-based that came from this flood, and that's what happened on the entire surface of the earth. And that's why we have fossils, dinosaur fossils, all kinds of fossils, and this is why we have pyrite. Pyrite there, by the way, comes from microbes. That's right. We've actually, researchers in a lab have been able to make pyrite, and it requires the right microbes in the seawater that decompose, and the minerals are in now in solution. And then by the way, when you cool the water or you lower the pressure, now the crystals that are in solution crystallize out. It's called precipitation. They precipitate out of the water. So this is really critical to understanding all these fossils.
I want to blow through a couple of slides here real quick before I have to exit the building, so to speak. Okay. But just to give a little overview here. you know, there's footprints in sandstone all around the world. There's
stop right there for a second. How can you have footprints that turned into stone that came from sand and clay? There's no possibility. Okay, there's no possibility. These footprints that you find were made by animals that stepped in the soft sand, and then that sand was gradually covered by rising waters under pressure and temperature and crystallized all the pieces of sand into sandstone. And by the way, it's in volume 1. We made the very first pieces of sandstone man has ever made with quartz. We take sand and we cement it into sandstone. That's all in volume 1.
And I like this picture because this is sandstones of ripples on the beach.
There's no way sand today is just going to be preserved into a rock. That's turned into a hard rock.
Right.
So you had to have a process for this to take place. And this was all in the flow.
Just showing this slide of where fossils are found. They're found in every state. They're all over the planet.
Wood in every state of the United States and every country in the world. All the surface of the earth, we find fossils made into petrified wood. This is the Yellowstone, okay, where they have a pretty famous tree there standing. And we explain how this got made. The researchers all know this had to be a quick process because there's no deterioration in the wood. There's no decomposing. Yep, very important.
There's that beautiful petrified forest sample of all the different microbes involved in that one.
Yep, the microbes are what made all those colors. You can see this here in the forest. And notice when you find petrified wood in all fossils, there's other ores in the area. These ores were made in the flood and they came from microbes. And the ores where we get our iron today, the magnetite, and by the way, that's another reason why the earth is not all made out of iron. Iron is a 7, by the way, and our Earth's density they think is 5.5 grams per centimeter cube. That's actually not correct because the magnetite and hematite are both 5.2 and 4.8 in their weight. This is the density.
I'm going to show a couple of slides here that I think are really cool, and I'll let you comment about it. But I want to blow through about 5 or 6 slides here, and then I'm going to have to exit here. But fossilized tree sap, and you've got animals and insects, or mainly insects and everything like that. I'm just going to show some of these pictures. And then there's an anhydro in the amber. And how did that all happen? All these, and then you've got fish eggs, frog eggs in the amber that got fossilized. I mean, that picture right there is just amazing to me.
No one in the world has this. This is an absolutely marvelous story. You can go in the book and read in volume 2 all about it. We had collectors say this is not possible. You can't have fish eggs and frog eggs inside amber. Well, amber is now a mineral. It's from tree sap on the trees. And there's no explanation for this with modern science. They cannot explain how amber is formed. We have all their quotes with them stating this. And we actually make amber in our autoclave. And we show this is our piece of amber, the only one in the world that is found with fish eggs and frog eggs in it. We had experts at the University of Colorado tell us they even think they know what kind of species these are. These little eggs, most of them have little anhydros in them. They have water bubbles inside the egg still. That's right, eggs have the yolk sac in there. We can actually see that in the piece of amber.
So the volume 1, volume 2 are just chock full. I mean, what's 800 pages on volume 1?
Great, can you show our little advertisement in here? We need to tell people you can get 20% off of any of these products if you go to universalmodel.com. You want to write this down, okay? universalmodel.com/store, and you go in there and put the promo code UMWayne, WAYNE, and you'll get 20% off any of our products. So this is a great entry to get in there and to learn about this. And by the way, we also have a rock kit in here. I was going to show this also later on. This is really neat. This is the only rock kit in the world that has this little pamphlet. There's 27 different minerals in here. This is the only one in the world that tells you not just its name and where it came from, but how it was made and when the rock was made. and they're all in here. We have samples of everything. We have samples of petrified wood. We have these crystals we're showing that in here that had to be made in the flood because there's no termination point on them. We have surface chalcedony and how these rocks were made right on the surface of the earth. We have a pyrite in here. We have a geode in here. We have all kinds of neat rocks. This is a good explanation that is on our webpage. But this is a real exciting pamphlet. We actually have, in one of these little containers, we have some of our man-made rocks in here. So you actually get to see some of that and other minerals, double terminated quartz. We have some fossilized shark teeth in here. And we, by the way, no scientist can tell you how shark teeth get made into a fossil. Nobody. That's a whole nother discussion in volume 2. We got the shark teeth in there because shark teeth, a shark loses 10,000 teeth in its lifetime. There you go. And they're white, okay? How do they turn to black and brown? Those teeth, when they come out, can you show the next slide? And I put them in these little containers, and I don't know if you have them on there. Right there, those little containers, you see that? I took modern day shark teeth and I put them in all different types of water that has bacteria in it, ocean water, pond water, just all kinds of water. And guess what? In a matter of a couple weeks, the shark teeth dissolved. They are gone. This is why the divers, when they go find fossilized teeth, they never find any of the white teeth. Look in the bottom left-hand corner in the middle, that's a modern shark tooth. Instead, they find all these fossilized ones that have been turned into rock, right? There's no modern ones turning into rock today. They all get decomposed by the microbes, the same as the wood that we find in the forest, okay?
And I really like the temperature display on the right that shows if you take shark teeth and heat them to different temperatures, they're going to have different colors.
Exactly. So this is a way you can preserve the teeth, okay? Is through heat and under pressure and water. This is how they became fossilized and became rock. So this is the first time anybody's ever answered how fossils are made. We actually make the fossils and prove it and show it. This is how science is done, not with just a theory.
These right here are just amazing photographs in volume 2. I just absolutely love it. You've got the different species that are fossilized, different samples of everything under the sun literally being fossilized. And then I love that one at the bottom in the middle where it's a fossilized large fish eating a small fish. Tell me how that came. Okay, that's stop motion photography fossilization right there.
Absolutely. This proves that the fossilization method, when this happened, was very quick. This is not millions of years, not a year, not even a whole day. There's no way. This happened instantly. Instantly. The pressure and water came over this whole slew of fish and other animals. This is from Kemmer, Wyoming. I've been to this site myself and dug the fossils myself, okay? And you can go there and do it yourself with your family and kids if you want. Kemmer, Wyoming is one of the most famous fossil places in the world. By the way, we go to the Rock and Gem Show every year in February down in Arizona. It's the most famous gem show where all around the world people come and bring their rocks and minerals there. And this is where I was able to gather information all around the world. Those are dinosaur eggs there. You can see they're fossilized. An egg is very, you sit on it, you can break it, okay? So why in the world would an egg turn into a rock? Well, this only happens in a hypertherm in the flood. And this is all demonstrated in there. So all the living things of where life came from, this is all in volume 2. We talk about evolution in here, and how evolution has never, ever had one species in a laboratory or in the wild been shown to create another species. So we actually have the DNA evidence in here in the chapter that shows the evolution that was supposed to have been proven did not happen. Actually, here's the National Academy of Science. Here's that quote that I talked about before there. It says that theories are the endpoints of science. See, their endpoint is not natural law. What modern science wants is theories. And why do they want a theory? Because then they can just make another theory, because their theories are all wrong. They just want to be able to keep making other new theories, and that's what they do. So, yeah, we have a whole section in here about evolution and how evolution was never proven, never has. Darwin never showed it. No biologist today has ever shown it. All these, there's a whole chapter in here. We have quotes after quotes after quotes showing where it came from, Darwin's whole past, a lot of stuff from his journal that nobody's ever even published before. So this is real important to understand who Darwin really was, and we go into a lot of detail there about that.
So I want to, my time is really, I'm stretching it right here, but I just want to see if there's any really cool slides before I have to exit the slide thing. Oh, the one thing I think is really cool is since the volume 2 really is the living model, the cellular structure. I mean, I was reading a book that just talks about the cell itself and what an amazing manufacturing, just one cell of any organism is just phenomenally sophisticated in all the mechanisms, the enzymes, and all the different things that go on from a single cell organism up to us. But the science of where does information, DNA is literally code, and where did the code come from? Yeah, bacteria can swap DNA and all the different things like that, but the intelligence behind the simulation of life is just incredible.
And DNA is so important, Greg, because it's actually demonstrated that evolution never happened, and it can't happen. You can take any species and you look at their so-called tree of life. Well, where's the tree that shows all the other species coming from this common ancestor? It does not exist. Right. And if you go to the Smithsonian back in Washington, D.C., all their presentations on evolution and every museum you go to, they're all wrong. They're all misleading and misguiding the people that go in and look at those. Because nobody can show you a tree where man came from this ape-like creature, came from this animal, came from this and this. Nobody can show that because DNA has disproven it. And we have in the book, yeah, look right there. This is amazing. If molecular evolution is really neutral at these sites, a high mutation rate would indicate that Eve lived about 6,500 years ago. There was 2 groups of molecular scientists that have gone in and shown that literally man, but one group found 6,000 years, another 6,500 years through DNA, okay, have shown that that's how old we are. We cannot be any older than that. So this has been pushed under the rug. People don't know about it, don't talk about it. But in the universal model, we bring it out and show the details of this. And so for the
I'm going to exit the screen here. Just show you.
Leave the advertisement on there. That's great. And I don't know if Mark, you're still there. And if we have any questions, I don't know if anybody was able to get through and text any or not, or if maybe.
Is there anything besides this slide you want me to leave up there?
That's good for right now, Greg.
Okay, so I'm going to step out. I've got to go, everybody. So thank you all.
Appreciate all your help, Greg. Thank you. So while Mark is looking for questions to see if anybody has any on that, I was just going to finish by saying, let me just real quickly say we have one more volume coming out. This is volume 2. This has been a 30-year project, volume 1 and 2, Earth System, Living System. The third volume is called the Universe System. So this is really exciting because in the Universe System, we have twice as many experiments, twice as many new natural laws. Each one of these books has about a dozen new natural laws. Remember, in the last 100 years, there hasn't been one that you will find in any textbook. A big natural law that everybody is now publishing and saying, oh, wow, now we know this. We know how fossils are made. Well, we actually demonstrate how fossils are made in here. And we demonstrate how rocks are made in this one. And so we actually have these new natural laws that nobody's known about. Well, the third volume is called the Universe System. And in the Universe System, it's new physics, chemistry, and astronomy. And boy, you want to talk about new natural laws. We have about 24 in there. Some of the things that we do is we talk about the amazing fact that physicists do not know, And this is their own words. This is the most famous physicist out there. I said, remember, physics is the study of matter and energy. And they come right out and say, we really don't know what matter or energy is. Well, that's true. Okay, look at your periodic table, how simple it is, right? All those atomic masses are supposed to be correct there. Hydrogen is 1, right? And you go up to oxygen is 8, right? Those are gases. Well, helium is number 2. That's a gas. Well, what's number 3? That would be lithium. Lithium is a metal. It's not a gas. And when you go farther down, and oxygen is an 8, okay, these are supposed to be their weights. It doesn't work. No, the periodic table has never worked. The weights that they're supposed to be have never been correct. So this is new discoveries that have been made in this. Matter of fact, when you go to talk about energy, right? They know energy travels in a wave, okay? Well, who shoots a bullet and it go like this? Up and down, up and down. That's what they think energy travels like. They think it's an electron traveling like that. Well, it doesn't, okay? So we have the correct way that energy travels, and we can explain for the first time why it travels that way, because we know exactly what energy is. And we have a whole new model, and the technologists have figured this out, but they don't know that they know it, okay? This is the same thing that happened back when quartz was being made for rocks, for the radios. The technologists found out, but the geologists ignored it. They just ignored it because rocks can't come out of water. We know they come out of magma, out of a melt, right? Well, this little rock right here just proved that, okay? That little rock is basalt with the glass on it now because we melted it. So volume 3 is really interesting. It's real exciting. By the way, that won't be coming out super soon. I still have a lot of work to do on that. About half the chapters are written, so I get those reviewed enough. We have 2 dozen reviewers that help with this project, and once we get those chapters in digital form, you can buy our books online in digital and in hard copy. The digitals you have to read online right now, but we are converting those over to PDFs, so you'll be able to download those here. That's going to be pretty soon. But we will have digital copies of some of the chapters I have done. Hopefully by next year, I'll have that set up so we can start to show some of these chapters in the universe system. So that's a whole new area of new physics, new chemistry, and new astronomy. By the way, the universe did not come from a Big Bang. There was no explosion. The whole reason they have this off base is because they don't understand light. They don't understand the so-called background radiation. They don't understand the redshift. They do not understand light and what light is. And we demonstrate this with stuff and these are simple experiments, by the way, that most of them you can do in your own garage, in your own backyard. And so these are things that you don't have to wait for someone to, or just believe the so-called professors up on a pedestal that they know everything. That's not the way this is. You can hold in your hand a piece of amber like I'm doing right now, and you can find out exactly how this was made. Exactly. And we show the pressure and the temperature and how it was made, and in an experiment that's reproducible. So this is real exciting with our new light experiments. We're showing the law of refraction is actually incorrect, and we show why it was incorrect, and we show the new law of refraction. This is real important understanding. Everything you see in astronomy, well, it's light. Okay, it's light and energy coming from space. And unless you understand light and how it interacts with other matter in space, you'll never understand what you're seeing, because that's what you look through the telescopes. So we have new pictures from telescopes. I spent a year up all night, every night, taking pictures of something nobody's ever seen before. This is a fascinating new thing that I'll put in a future one of these webinars that we do. So we have a lot of new exciting discoveries in the universe system. I'm glad I had a minute to just kind of tell you about that. Mark, are you still there? All right. Okay, good question. So the universal model is written for everybody, okay? It doesn't matter whether you're an atheist, a Muslim, a Jew, or a Christian, you're all going to love the universal model because what it does is tell you the truth, okay? And how do we know something is true? We actually define in here for the very first time what scientific truth is. No one's ever done that before. We actually define what knowledge is and what wisdom is. These are in the very first chapter. You're going to learn the most basics of all. See, science by definition is to know. It's obtaining knowledge. That's what it means. But nobody's ever defined what knowledge is and how it's different than wisdom. That's in the very first chapter of this book, okay? So this is exciting because the universal flood, well, that's how we refer to it in the book. Yes, it was Noah's flood. And yes, there was a man in our history that lived. His name was Noah. In volume 2, we actually go through and show countries from all around the world and how they have genealogy that are showing that there was a flood, okay? Meaning that their genealogy all goes back to Noah. Yes, countries from all around the world, we have this in here. By the way, here's example. Here's something. Can you flip my screen to the big one so everybody can see it? Remember the Wayne promo code. If you want to get 20% off, Wayne, you go to universalmodel.com and go to the store. Can you flip that over, Mark, so they can see my big picture? Okay. No problem. So what I'm showing here is this is what we call a kanji. So this is a Chinese character. Now the Chinese language is one of 3 languages that came from the original 3 sons of Noah. Okay. So you don't have to have religion to understand this, okay? It's all in the secular world. You just have to have the research to show you. You have Ham, Japheth, and Shem. Those were the 3 sons of Noah. And their 3 wives are how we got the 3 different races in the world. The African race, the European race, and the Asian race. So the Asians, each of these 3 races had their own language at the very beginning because it was, you still working on that, Mark? There we go. Great. These 3 languages are what gave us, by the way, the Europeans were the cuneiform language, the Africans were the Egyptian language, and the Chinese still has their language. This is an amazing feat. For 4,000 years, we have the same language. Well, all 3 of those languages, the other 2 are not used today, the Egyptian and the cuneiform, they both have, all 3 of these languages have what we call pictographs. So they use pictures. So I can speak Japanese. I've lived over in Japan and Nihongo shaberu koto ga dekimasu desu ne. And if I spoke Japanese right now and I said a word like sea, what do I mean? Do I mean sea with my eyes or sea with an ocean water or maybe the letter C, right? No, the sea that I was thinking was Espanol sea, si senor, okay? So there's lots of words that have the same pronunciation. However, they have different meanings. Well, what Asian people do is in their hand, they go like this. And they'll write, like if I go like that and boom, 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 that's it. That means ki. That's a tree in Japanese, okay? And the Chinese character is the same thing. It looks like a tree. It has the trunk and then all these branches coming down. So if I say ki in Japanese and I go, what they do is when they say a word, they hold their hand out. All the Asian people do this and they write on their hand. And that's because their language, the cuneiform language and the language of the Egyptians all were confounded. The 3 original races at the very beginning from the Tower of Babel, this is historically proven, were all confounded. And we show in here that these languages were the original languages. 2 of them have fallen out of use, but Chinese is still used. And look what this one is right here. This is what I want to show, okay? That means boat in Chinese, okay? So if you look over here, what's the boat made out of? It's made out of 3 other characters. That character is the same in Japanese and Chinese. It means 8. This one means mouth or a person. And this one means vessel, a boat. So here you have 8 people on a boat. Well, when was there 8 people on a boat? You want to know if we're talking about the flood of Noah? You had Noah and his wife and his 3 sons and their daughters. That's 8 people on the boat, my friends. That's where this came from, okay? So we literally have hundreds of evidences, not 1 or 2 or 3 or 12 or 24, not just a couple dozen. Hundreds of evidences in these 2 volumes that demonstrate that the flood was a real event. It really happened. And once you recognize this, you're starting to say, oh my word, this really took place? Remember, I questioned this just like everyone else, okay? I'm not taking it from religion. I'm taking it from science, what's really in the earth we can observe today. So yes, answering that person's question, it is Noah's flood. But in here, we talk about it just as the universal model, and we don't get into the religion per se as much. We do at the very end of this book, though, because this is the living model. On the very last chapter in here talks about the human beings, and the very end of human beings, we have, by the way, in the human model, this was the last chapter I just recently finished, and before I put this out, we just came out with this year, okay? So this is a new volume. And in the human model, which is right here, you can see that here. We talk about a lot of really important things to human beings, what it means to be a human being, okay? And then also the human pseudo-theories. This is with Freudian and all these scientists that tried to bring psychology in and all this wacko science that was not true. They're called pseudo-theories, false theories taught as fact. Then we talk about the political science model. Yes, we have an election this year. We're either going to have a new president or Trump will be our president again. What's the difference between the Republicans and Democrats? Historically and right now, okay? What is the past with all of that? Well, that's all discussed in there. Also, the family science model. Why are families so important? Without a family, you don't have a country. That's right. You can't have single people, and you have to have babies. And it's called the birth rate has to be 2.1 per family or more, or your country will deteriorate and be no more. So this birth rate has gone down all around the world, and we explain this and why it's so important to have the family, nuclear family, and why it's so important. The medical science model, I mentioned that a little bit before. We have several new medical discoveries about the human body, and you'll love that. The noetic science model. So I brought this up because that is dealing with noetic science, which really is dealing with how it deals with, so this really, if you want to call it religion, but it's not really religion, it's dealing with near-death experiences. These are scientists themselves that died, okay? And their experience they had when they died and when they came back, and thousands of other people that have died. These are documented scientific studies of all these people and how they were able to see things when they were totally out, when they should have not been able to see anything, and they were able to actually be outside their body and see. And so this has to do with telepathy and how this is a real thing that's been ignored by modern scientists. So this is all noetic science. And then we have religions. And the reason we've had so much problem with religion and science is because you can never have, religions is the actual combining of science and religion. And nobody's ever been able to do this before because you have to have true religion and true science. It's only when you have the truths on both sides that they align. 2 times 3 will never be 5 or 7. 2 times 3 is 6. It was yesterday, it is today, and it will be tomorrow. This is the definition of truth. Truth is knowledge of what is, was, and will be. You won't find anybody on the internet that's a philosopher going in there and telling you what truth is. Isn't that amazing? It's amazing. They'll give you pages and pages and pages of discussion about truth, but they won't tell you what truth is. Truth is the knowledge of things that don't change. It's what is, was, and will be. Scientific truth, on the other hand, is the knowledge of what was, is, and as far as we know will be, because the future hasn't happened yet. So with scientific truth, we make predictions. That's why you have to have natural law, because when I drop my rock, I'm going to be able to predict it's going to fall at 9.8 meters per second squared. So that's where science is really important and can help us find truth in everything in life, including humans' origin. Where did we really come from? Where do we go after this life? This is the most important question for every human being. Every human being. And that's all answered here in volume 2. Okay, so where did the water come from, and where did it go, and also the amount of water. Let's see if we can handle those right here. So in volume 1, our chapter 8 is the universal flood model. And by the way, this is the largest chapter in the book. We're talking 250 pages. That's a book in itself, and it's one chapter. So we don't just talk about this lightly, okay? There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of quotes from scientists, pictures. We have thousands of images and diagrams in here demonstrating everything we're talking about. So the very beginning of this chapter, we actually talk about the mechanism of the flood. So this answers all these questions. It's been more than a decade that I've had somebody ask a question, a general science question that the universal model does not answer. More than a decade. I talked to thousands of people. So the questions they asked are right here in the book, answered. So this is in the universal flood chapter, okay? And in that universal flood chapter, we come down here. There's the history of the universal flood, and then the acknowledged flood. How scientists have to acknowledge that the flood actually, there was waters that covered all the mountains, by the way. They acknowledge that. Why do they have to acknowledge that? Because fossils are found on top of all the mountains. That's right. We're talking marine fossils. Plus there's pillow lava and other things that are only formed underwater. So they know all the mountains are covered with water. They just think it was at different times, all the same time. So we have this in here. So let's go to universal flood mechanism. This is 8.3. By the way, it's all really well organized. This is chapter 8. Down on the bottom of the left-hand page, it tells you what chapter you're in. Over on the right, it tells you what subchapter you're in. Everything's organized under subchapters and then sub-subchapters. So you can quickly go and find everything in here. There's so much information. We could talk for 10 years and it's not going to end, okay? This just keeps going. And it talks about the dinosaurs here, the great dying. This is all concerning the flood. Here's the pillow lava I was just talking about. Seashells is the top of the mountains. Dolomites of Italy. This dolomite comes out of seawater, okay? The subduction pseudo theory. This is important to understand how modern science doesn't understand plate tectonics. They don't understand how all that really works. The Earth's crust, by the way, is moving up and down. It's called Earth tide, okay? This is really important because it affects a whole bunch of sciences. The Earth is breathing. I'm in Utah right now, but all of North America, you have a rising and a falling of the Earth's crust. About 1 foot every 24 hours is how high up and down. Everything behind me, all the mountains, the buildings, everything went up and down. At the equator, it's about 2 feet. This is really important because Earth tide explains so many things. This is why we just had a big earthquake today, 6.9 over in Malaysia or somewhere. I keep track of that every day, watching the earthquakes. The earthquakes happen, and geologists can't explain this, but they happen because this Earth tide is moving. By the way, your eyes cannot see Earth tide because everything around you goes up and down. But the satellites, which have they send the waves back and forth really quick, and with GPS, and then you can turn your phone and it can tell you which way you're going right here. Well, they'll actually measure with GPS down to a millimeter. This is how we know that the mountains right now are not going up and down, by the way. You know, over millions of years, this is all bogus. Everything happened in the flood, and this is all demonstrated in here. Well, we got to get back to the water where it came from. By the way, the English Channel mega flood down here, this is on the bottom of the English Channel. It's all been mapped out, and it shows you there was a big flood that happened. But here's the mechanism of the flood. This is real important. You want to know where all the water came from? This kind of answers all those questions, okay? So this is on page 494 in volume 1. So what we're looking at here in the very first one, we're showing the Earth is balanced. The gravitational force and the centrifugal force, which pulls things out, they're balanced, okay? So the water and everything's balanced. But keep in mind, the reason why it's balanced, well, it's not a perfect sphere. On the equator, you have about 27 miles, which is almost 50 kilometers of extra width. In other words, it's kind of like an egg. It's wider at the equator. And this is because the earth is spinning and there's water inside and it's come out and this has been pulled open, okay? So what happens is, I didn't explain this before, and this will probably help. There was nothing on the earth that could bring all the water out of the earth, at the inside of the earth. The whole inside is like Swiss cheese. Swiss cheese. So there's holes everywhere in there, okay? And so there's water all inside the earth. We're estimating about a third of the inside of the earth is water. By the way, they have moons around. I just got to show you this because you're not going to believe me unless I show you. Okay, I say this type of stuff. I'm a scientist, and if someone just says something to me, I'm not going to believe it. I have to see it. Okay, so we talked about Enceladus, right? We talked about this one with the water all coming out. When you turn the page over here to the 3 more pages over, and we're going to see some. Oh, by the way, look, that's obsidian. See how much water is in that rock? Look at that. That's how much in obsidian. How much? That's only 3% by weight. And compared to the volume of that rock, look at all that water inside there. All rocks have water in it. This has never been explained. So here we go, page 245. This is a rock. This is a moon around Saturn. You can see Saturn's ring there. This is the moon. Okay. Look at the quote. This is from NASA now. This is not me speaking. This is NASA. So this is Tethys Hydrosphere. This is the name of this moon. This Tethys. Quote, this moon is known to have a density very close to that of water. A density of water means 1.0, indicating it is likely composed mainly of water ice. This is not me saying this. This is the scientists of NASA saying the entire moon around the Saturn is water. And it's just not that moon. Here's another moon over here. And there's other moons over here, okay? Matter of fact, look at Jupiter's moons. Here's Jupiter's 3 moons. This is a NASA diagram showing they have more water inside the earth than we're saying is inside the earth. The more water inside these 3 moons going around Jupiter, already they're saying this, and we're saying it's inside the earth. Nobody's explaining that. No. So this is where the water inside the earth came from. They already know, they already acknowledge that other moons around other planets have all this water inside it. So where the water comes from is really simple. It's down there right now. Matter of fact, I can drill right where I'm at, or right where any of you are sitting. And guess what? It's only a matter of time, how far down you go, you're going to hit water. Everywhere on the surface of the earth, you go down, you'll hit water. You just have to drill far enough. It's because it's all over. Just talk to the drilling people. So I got to go back here now to the flood mechanism real quick. Okay, that was 8.3. Is that so? Hopefully, I explained where the water came from, right, Mark? You got that? Now we're going to go to yes. What's so amazing? I started seeing water in all these other celestial planets, and I'm just going, "Oh my word!" Once you're looking for it, it's like when you get a new car. Let's say you get a Nissan or a Toyota van or something. All of a sudden, what do you see on the road now everywhere? Nissans and Toyota vans. You get a new truck. I got a GMC truck last year. Well, guess what? Everywhere I look, I see GMC trucks. So it's really what you become familiar with. And because all of a sudden the universal model is going to open your eyes, you're going to be familiar now with all these things you've never seen before. And now you're going to see water everywhere. And inside the planets, as a matter of fact, there's the strongest, most powerful energy source out of the whole universe. This is not Dean saying it. This is the NASA scientists who are receiving the radiation, and guess what it's coming from? Water. This is their quote, not mine. The water source is the most powerful energy source coming in the whole universe is water. Water turns out to be the primordial matter. Everything came out of water. You came out of your mommy's tummy out of a water sack. Every little thing, every tree behind me right now has water in it. All the cells have to have water to crystallize and to form. It's all done in water. And water is organized, by the way. They don't understand water. We have a whole chapter in volume 3 on water and air, because water and air are not what they teach you in school today. Anyway, I'm jumping ahead. There's so much stuff in here, but let's go back to this question. The mechanism, okay, where did the water come from? Well, number one, the forces were balanced. Then what happened was outside the earth, it's called a comet, came close by the earth. And we didn't know about these comets you turn the page over here. Here's a comet called Sedna, okay? And Sedna right here, you can see that. Sedna literally was the very first comet that they're estimating it has a 12,000 year period. So it takes 12,000 years for it to go out and come back. They didn't know about this about, I don't know, a dozen, 15 years ago. They didn't know about these comets. Even this Neowise, it's the latest comet. I think it's 6,000 years. They're still measuring the length of that. The point is, Halley's Comet, everybody probably heard about that, but that's like 78 or 9 years, I think, it comes back around. So they only knew about the short-term comets. They didn't know about these large comets. This comet I just showed you here is very large compared to other comets. It's about half the diameter of the moon, okay? But this one has 12,000 years. That's the cycle. So the flood happening 4,000 years ago is very within the realms, and this may have actually been the comet that did it. When it comes in close by the Earth, all it had to do is not hit the Earth, just come close by and disrupt the spinning of the Earth. So when you slow down the Earth, all of a sudden what happens is you have less centrifugal force, okay? And that causes, it's like if I take a bucket, have it half full of water, I can start spinning it around my head, and when it's up on top, does the water come out? No, centrifugal force is pulling it out, okay? And it holds the water up there until it comes back down the bottom and around and around. Well, what happens if I take that up there and do it real slow? Well, I'm going to get drenched with water, okay, because it falls back in. So this is what happened. The crust of the Earth fell in, and the water inside came out. That's why you have all these fountains, these big fountains down here, okay? And you can see the crust here collapsing. That's what happened with the example I just gave with the bucket flipping over your head. And so this is a diagram explaining the flood mechanism. Here's the water shooting out, coming outside the Earth. These are called hydrofountains. Hydrofountains are all over the Earth. This is a new term you only find in the universal model. Modern scientists don't know about them. Hydrofountains, a lot of the water had minerals in it that was dissolved, and guess what? The pressure was changed, and those minerals became a rock, and they turned into dikes. So we actually have these hydrofountains. I got pictures on there. Here's some right here. These are rock pillars that you can see these all over the world. And these pillars are hydrofountains with all the soft sediment has been gone around it. Okay, so here's one today. See that one there? That one actually is in Utah. And this is a diagram showing you how this rock was made. This is a completely different type of rock than the red sandstone around it. This is a white sandstone. And it shows you here was the water that was coming up through the pipe, which was blowing out the hydrofountains in the flood, okay? And then finally it blew out here, and it became hard. This is all underwater where this pipe in here was in a hypertherm. And because you understand how rocks are made, this all makes sense now. For the first time, you can see where all these pillars around the Earth, how they got made. There's no mechanism in modern geology to show how they got made. It does not work. But the universal flood demonstrates it. And so we can show how they actually exist today. So these hydrofountains that blew out, they blew all the water out of the Earth. And remember, now you have a hypertherm. So this is the 30,000 feet, which gives you about 14,000 PSI pressure. And all the friction, all the plates moving back and forth caused friction, which heated the water. And that's where we get the hyperthermal conditions and all the rocks being made, all the fossils being made. And then what happens is the Earth has an exterior force. We'll talk about this in volume 3. There's an exterior force out there that's causing the Earth's spin to be constant. Scientists don't understand this. They think the Earth should be slowing down because the moon's right over there. It's pulling on us. That's a big force pulling on you, right? So the Earth should be slowing down. It's not. Time is the most constant of all constants. And it's very important to understand that Einstein and his theories are not correct. You'll see that when you read volume 3. We go into detail in his life and everything. Einstein actually was not even a scientist, because a real scientist takes new observational facts, new experiments that you've done, and you prove to the general public that this is what's real, okay? And you do it with physical things and actually show. Well, Einstein never did an experiment on his own, never. He just used his head and made theories, and others have tried to prove his theories, And those theories have all now been debunked. They're in volume 3, okay? So Einstein's theory is a pseudo theory. That's where they get this Earth came from a Big Bang and everything in the universe came from a Big Bang. It's all completely false. Matter of fact, show me one experiment showing E equals mc squared. See, F equals ma. If you're into physics, F equals force equals mass times acceleration. You can do that in every physics class. You actually have experiments and show the force equals the mass times acceleration. But try to find E equals mc squared, the mass times the speed of light squared. Well, you can't square the speed of light. Einstein says nothing goes from the speed of light. He was wrong, but you still shouldn't be able to square it in his theory. Energy doesn't equal those units. Those units don't make energy. That's not how we define energy. So that is the equals mc squared formula is wrong. That formula didn't even come from Einstein. It came from another scientist, and we show that historically in that chapter. So as you can see, we can jump from model to model to model and system to system to system because they're all intertwined. Remember all those pieces of the puzzle we showed at the very beginning of our presentation? How they're all over the place with modern science? But when you put each piece together correctly, how many ways do they fit? One. And what do they make? A picture that we can all understand and comprehend. I hope today you've had a chance to learn more about the universal model and it makes sense. Mark, was there another question concerning the flood or anything else? I'm fine. Usually just go as long as you want. What other questions did you have? Okay, boy, this is a good question. I was hoping someone would ask this and I get to show you, okay? I'm going to literally show you, okay? I'm going to show you where the Earth's magnetic field. So first, let's talk with what modern science says the magnetic field comes from. First says the magnetic field comes from magma. What is the UM already proven? There is no magma. We have a water core, not an iron, metal, hot core. There's no mechanism for heat down there. We know there's a liquid because the sound waves, by the way, when sound waves go through the earth from earthquakes, on the other side, they leave a big shadow because some of the sound waves, longitudinal, do not go through water. They don't go through a liquid, okay? So that's how we know how big the core is. But the point is, from a heated source, they think the Earth's magnetism comes from. They think it's a magnet down there. Just go open your book and you'll see in your physics textbooks, you'll see this little magnet and they'll show this field going around the Earth and the magnet's on the Earth, okay? So I show all that in the volume 1 here, by the way. Volume 1, the very last chapter is the weather model. You'll never understand weather until you understand correct geology. Fascinating, isn't it? Correct geology tells us how we get our weather. And we can predict weather when we understand geology correctly. So what's connected to all this is the Earth's energy field. It's not a magnetic field, number one. Heat in the center of the Earth would destroy a magnet. You leave your cell phone out in the sun, guess what it does? It turns off because the electricity in there, there's a sensor that says it gets this hot, you're going to destroy your phone. So it turns off, okay? So electricity and magnetism are destroyed by heat. So that's number one, forget magma. Plus they've tried and tried, they've spent millions of our dollars, our tax dollars. Scientists do this all the time, trying to show one of their theories is correct, and they're completely false. You don't take melted rock, they've been trying to do melted salt and put it in a big hot thing, and melt it into all molten material, and even spin it, see if they can get a magnetic field. Think it's worked? No, that's not worked. Okay, so now I'm going to tell you modern science does, and they acknowledge this. They don't know the origin of the magnetic field. We have quotes in the book of the scientists. Not all of them will acknowledge it, but the ones that are really into the field, to their cohorts, they do. And that's what the universal model is so unique. We actually go into their journal articles because we can understand everything they're writing about, and we take out all the juicy quotes and put them right in here for you. And you can go to the references and read any of them you want. Remember, this is all universalmodel.com/store. Use the promo code UMWayne, UMWayne, all one word, doesn't matter if it's caps or not, UMWayne, you'll get 20% off any of these products we're talking about right now. Okay, so where does the Earth's, not magnetic field, It's an energy field that we've had to give it a new name. It's called geofield come from. Well, where it comes from is this. Actually, everything you can see behind me, there's just some gravel rock here behind me. But it comes from every rock here on my table that's made out of quartz that's in the ground. What I have here is 2 quartzite rocks, and I'm going to demonstrate to you where the Earth's energy field comes from right now. I'm going to do that by taking you into my office. Okay? So what I'm going to do, this will only take us 30 seconds. I'm going to take right here because we have to have a dark area to do this. And so we're going to go in here. And it's going to be a little darker in here. I've done this before on my computer. So we'll see how good it works right now. Okay, it's pretty dark right down here. You can see my hand. Okay, so what I'm taking is just 2 rocks. Now you can do this yourself. In our rock kit, we actually have these in here, so you can actually do it with the rocks in the rock kit. But if you go out and find any of your own rocks that are made out, have quartz in them, and we show a whole variety of rocks that make this. Okay, I'm going to tell you the name of it right now. It's called piezoelectricity. Watch these 2 rocks. Let's see if I can do it down here, see if you can see it. I'm going to rub them together. Did you see that? Look at that light. Let's do it here in the middle. See that light? Let's try it here again. Mark, can you see it? Hello? Okay, you can see. Yeah, you're seeing a spark. Okay, you're seeing a spark there. Okay, well, that's because this is quartz rock. It's called piezoelectricity. Your phone, if you have a phone, the only reason your phone is working with the microphone and also the speakers because they're piezoelectric. Did you hear me? The technologists have figured this out already. They make piezoelectricity, and I'm going to show you right now. Okay, this is some film. This is a film. It's plastic. It's really thin. You can see there. Okay, and in between it is piezoelectric material, just like these rocks, only they've been crushed up. Okay, so between this film here is piezoelectricity, and it's very thin. This is what they make the speaker out of your phone and your microwave and your microphone. Okay, and over here on this side, though, guess what you're seeing? You're seeing 2 wires, and you're seeing a light bulb. Okay, so a light bulb with 2 wires coming out of it without a battery, how is that supposed to light up, right? Okay, so let's see if I can get this to do this here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this thing on here, okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it like this, back and forth, okay? So I'm moving, just like I was rubbing my 2 rocks together, I'm moving, and look what I'm creating through the wires to the light bulb. That's light. Did you see it going? Huh? Is that cool? That's electricity, people. Yeah, that's electricity. Okay? This is how this energy is made. The rubbing, remember, we talked about earth tide. You can Google it. They don't teach you this in school, but earth tide, okay, is the movement of the crust. It never stops because the moon is there and the sun is there, and it's constantly pulling on the crust. Now, water we learned in school, right? The waves of the ocean have tide. What's causing the tide? Mark, what's causing the tide in the ocean? The moon. So you got an A today, okay? Because you just said it was the gravity from both the sun and the moon are pulling on the Earth's water, and that's what the tide goes in and out. However, does gravity only pull on water? It pulls everything. That's right, including the rocks. And I'm moving my rock, and guess what? The sun and moon are moving their rocks, and it's creating an electric field. And so now was a theory when we first came up with it, but now it's been proven. It's a natural law in volume 1, because we go in there and actually show you, because of this, this is why the most rocks are on continents, okay? Not under the ocean continents. So up on the continents, this is why you find lightning on just the continent areas. You don't go out in the middle of the ocean and find lightning, okay? And we show that the aurora happens right on the plate lines from plate to plate and up at the North Pole where it's happening, where the strongest parts of the Earth's energy field, which is now called the geofield, are. All these phenomena can be explained because you understand how electricity is really being made around the Earth. It's called piezoelectric, piezoelectricity. You can, it's in Wikipedia, P-I-E-Z-O electric, piezoelectric. And so now we know where the Earth's energy field comes from. I hope that helped. Any questions before I leave my dark off? Yeah, so I'll mention that real quick. So yeah, you're going to have this available in a day or two so people can watch the whole presentation because it's over an hour and a half long. It's actually 2 hours now. So you'll want to go to universalmodel.com. That's our website. Go to the store. It's just up on the top there. Clicking, go into the store, and any item you want to buy on there for only for you guys only. This is Wayne is your promo code. Wayne. Okay, it doesn't have to be caps or anything. You type in Wayne. It's from Wayne Dorvan, and now you have 20% off any item you want to get. By the way, I didn't explain. I'm going to go back outside here. We not only have these volumes of books, okay, we also have a summary book, which I'm going to give people the summary book an audio free. If they're like, oh, well, this sounds great, but I don't know. I don't want to spend any money on it, whatever. Well, here you can get a whole summary about this for free. I think it's summary audio. That's another promo code. I don't give that out. Summary audio. If you put that promo code in when you get to the summary book, now you're going to be able to access the audio book in the summary book. So this is the summary book right here, and what you can see here is that it's a short one. Okay, book. It's about 3 hour long audio. You can get it for free. So if you want this book for free, go to Summary Audio. Use that as your promo code when you go to universalmodel.com. That's our website, and go to the store. And this is a great summary book of not just volume 1 and 2 that we've been talking about all today. I just barely touched on a little bit of what's in volume 3. And that in here, we actually talk a lot more detail about some of the things that are in volume 3. We obviously don't have all the answers in here because this is a little teeny book. But if you look on the back here, there's a whole ton of questions that you'll only get answered from the Universal Model. There's no other book in the world. Matter of fact, every one of these, when you open these up, there's like 50 questions right there on the front of each of these books. And then at the end, it tells you the page number right there where to go and find the answer. So there's literally 1,000 extraordinary answers in this book. Extraordinary is defined as a discovery that is so significant, it changes every textbook in the world. For example, the Earth has a water core, not a magma core. That changes everything. The fact that the Earth is not melted inside, the planets didn't come from a melt, the age of the Earth is not 4.5 billion years old. That's all been disproven now. It's all shown in here. So if you are a homeschooler, by the way, and guess what? There's a lot of people that have their kids at home. We have 2 workbooks. I need to explain these 2 here too. These are workbooks that go with volume 1 and volume 2. So these are fantastic because you open these up and there's a whole bunch of things in here that your kids can go to this page and learn about this, and they can write in here. So this is great for kids and adults if you want to learn how to do stuff. Okay, these workbooks are just fantastic in helping with that. So they taught, here's a water cycle, the modern science weather model, and how it does not work. And we show you the new water cycle, okay, because they forgot about the hypertherm. They forgot that underneath the ground there is not magma, but lava. And when that happens and hits the water, it turns into steam. And guess what that steam does? It comes out of the ground and creates clouds. The first time the origin of clouds is being found. Clouds do not come from evaporation only. They also come from vaporization. That's all explained in the weather model in volume 1. But in here, we actually have workbooks for the kids and even adults. This is a brand new one we just came out with, the living model. And it tells all kinds of great, how the human body works, and all kinds of stuff that we discussed about in volume 2 about the human being and the human body. We also have a Days of Darwin book. This is the very first book. We had a friend of ours put it's a fiction book that is based on the universal model. So it's kind of a fun little short read for kids that are learning to read. It's a great book for the kids to read. You can get all of these in one big package in there on the UM. There's a special discount we did. Plus you use Wayne, Wayne, you get 20% off that one. So these are just all products that we have on there right now. We're working and trying to get more, trying to help those parents who are trying to teach their kids at home truth. And science is a great way to find truth, because when the kid can experience for themselves, like you find rocks like this on the ground, no geologist can tell you how this got made. They can't explain it. You look on the bottom, this part here is all flat, okay? And it grew right on. This is a quartz-based rock, okay? This is called surface chalcedony. Surface chalcedony, all right? Here you can see it a little better. And these are amazing rocks. They're found all over the earth when you know where to look. They're only found on the surface. These grew on the flood in the bottom of the ocean. And we demonstrate this in the book. We show how they're growing right now on the bottom of the ocean, in the right place where there's hot smokers coming up, and the silica is dissolved in the water, and it crystallizes right out of the water into these. And these are found on the surface of the earth, all around the earth when you know where to look. So we got stuff like that in there that helps everybody understand, you know, how these fossils made. This is a really neat piece of, these are ammonites. This is one of the most famous and abundant fossils all around the earth. And they're really pretty. It's got translucent colors. I don't know if you can see that very well here. If I turn this light on a little better, maybe you can see that. You can see the colors there on that. But these are really neat, these ammonites. You can go out and dig these yourselves and find them, okay? But there's a reason they're curled up. They're like shrimp on the bottom of the ocean. Why are they're all filled in. And they're filled in with minerals. Some of them are made out of pyrite. How in the world do fossils get made out of pyrite? That's fool's gold. It makes no sense with the paleontologist, but the UN answers those questions. Okay, Mark, anything else? Pleasure. No, I just want to thank you and Wayne for the opportunity to be here. I'm looking forward in the future. We didn't really have time to go into a lot of detail on volume 2, so maybe we'll do another one and try to focus on volume 2 a little bit more. But each time we can do this and help people learn more about nature, that's our goal. You know, so all of us to understand why we are such an important part of all the beauty that surrounds us. Thank you for this opportunity.